I love that feeling of when I'm laying back on the mat and my heart is like beating out of my chest. It's like, it feels so alive.
Yo.
What's going on, brother? What are you up to, man?
Just living the dream, man. It's Good Friday. Let's make them all Good Fridays.
Bro, I just got back from seeing you in New York, and 2 days I was up there walking around that city. It was 41 degrees and it was raining.
Yeah. That sucks.
What the hell, bro? What's wrong with that place? What is wrong with that place?
Today's beautiful. Today's great. But so
it's 80 degrees here in Florida right now.
It's definitely, that's better.
Right? It's a little bit better, right?
That's a little bit better, yeah. No, now I saw somebody post a meme the other day about the weather here. It's like, it said like winter and spring are fighting over custody right now. And that's always how like March and April are. It's like one day is really nice, another day is fucking terrible.
I know. It gets like that here sometimes too, but not to that degree. I was just talking to my daughter about in England, and I'm like, England is so much like New York, you know?
Yeah.
Where it just gets like cold, and then I think New York gets a lot hotter. I've never been in New York. I've never been up there in like July and August. I imagine it's hot.
It gets sweltering. Like it gets like high 90s. Sometimes it even creeps into the hundreds, and it's like 100% humidity.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets, there's always a few weeks, July, August that get fucking ridiculous.
I always think about even as a kid, I was so, growing up in Vegas and New Orleans where it's so hot and like miserable. I remember when I was like 6 years old, my parents brought us to the beach and I saw waves for the first time, and I was playing in the waves, and I was like, and the weather was perfect. And I remember even at that young age, I was like, why don't we live here?
Why would anybody not live here? Man?
Yeah, why in the world would? And then as I got older, I was like, if I was like in one of those where they went across the plains and whatever, what do they call those? Pioneers.
Settlers?
Yeah, if I was a settler or pioneer, I would have just been like, just keep going, keep going till we hit the beach, man. It'll be great, I promise you.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, no, we need to stop in Vegas where it's 120 degrees. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Wild.
So yeah, it was a good time up there, man. I love it.
Absolutely, man.
It was so cool, man.
Great jiu-jitsu session. That was awesome. It was a really good room that day.
Very good room. I love it. I was telling you, man, I really like at this stage of jiu-jitsu for me, I love training in like more boutique, like just private gyms. I've been doing that for so long, but I like that because I don't like the structure of, I don't need the structure, as much of teaching. And so I'd rather just go in there and work on things and talk about things and just kind of go through and,
Exactly.
It gets to be a little much. I had a good session after I left, after the next day. I found a gym in Brooklyn where I was, and it was like I went and talked to the guys who two brothers own the gym. It's called Jiu-Jitsu Lounge. Really cool. Really cool. You got to check it out. Very cool. What was cool is I talked to them. They're like, oh, you're from AOJ, you're a black belt. We'll open the gym for you tomorrow, and we'll just go the three of us. And so the two brothers. Yeah. And so we just did round after round, and I'm like dying.
That was 2 days in a row, the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. And then last night I had like brutal training, and my body's just like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah,
what are you doing, man?
That's hard.
What are you doing? I read this. I was listening to Peter Attia. I think I talked to you about it, but I was listening to him talk about like fitness, once you're over like 30, 35, and because whatever you do when you're 20 in your 20s is like,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever, but then you got to start being more intentional. And one of the things that came up is that I'm really starting to get a handle on is, or I think I'm starting to get a handle on, is recovery and the HRV measurement.
Yeah.
And so what I kind of am getting out of it, because, there's that measure of HRV, which is what is the variability of your, and I never really quite understood it, but I think that the point of it is, because I have researched it, but I'd never really heard it put this way, is your body, when you get your body up to like maximum heart rate, like when we're sparring or running or whatever, the question is, how quickly can you how many beats can you recover in 1 minute? So if I'm pushing up to like, let's say 160 or whatever heartbeats, and we're sparring hard, and I'm like, oh my gosh, when I stop, how many beats in 60 seconds can I recover?
So that's how quickly really, can you get back to baseline? The quicker you get back to baseline, the healthier you are. Yes,
the healthier you are. Or does my heart just stay like, oh my gosh, I'm dying the whole time? So that made me want to, I'm going to do an experiment where I'm going to get like one of those like baseball, whatever things. So I don't want to cut someone with my watch. So tape it up and put like a sock or something around it so I don't cut someone, and then spar and get a true measurement of how quickly am I.
Have you ever used like the Whoop strap?
No.
So I did that for like more than a year, and it's really good. It's just, I got tired of wearing like the fucking, the strap on all the time. You know what I mean? Like I have my, it looked like I was wearing 2 watches, and people would always be like, why are you wearing 2 watches? I'm like, it's not fucking 2 watches. I just don't love the way that it looks, but I used it for like a year and change. And
did you ever spar with it?
Yeah. Well, cause what they have, right, is, and it's very cool. They have like this arm sleeve, right? So it's like an arm sleeve that goes over your bicep, and you put the device inside, so it's pressed up against your bicep. So I would have like, you program your workouts. So when you start, jiu-jitsu's in there. So I have data that shows like my jiu-jitsu workouts, the amount of calories I've burned, the heart zones. The Whoop is really awesome. It's just, I wish they would come up with some sort of a better wearable version of it, or like if they had like some kind of thing they could put under an actual watch. You know what I mean? Like during the day when you're not training, and then put the thing on when you're something like that. But they don't have it yet. They have so they have underwear too. So you can they have underwear that has the thing. You can take the device off the strap and put it in the underwear. They have that. But now it's like, you got to have fucking, only wear their underwear. It's pretty fucking intense.
It's pretty weird, man. It is so weird. It's so weird. I'm kind of like wanting to really dial that in, because I don't feel like I'm getting a true measure of my HRV. But what's really interesting is that when I was traveling and finally got back, because I woke up early and I'd wake up at like 4:35, get on the plane, get out there, blah, 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 blah. That it's those travel days, man, my HRV drops in half. It's really interesting what a hit, having that instability in your schedule does for you. And that affects your overtraining,
I think what's interesting is routine eating, like we were talking about the other day, like eating at the same time every day, going to sleep at the same time. That is all serious shit. That is really, really makes a positive and or negative impact. And I'm good with the eating, but lately my sleep, like I've been going to bed a lot later, and I feel it.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad for you, man. It's crazy, because what came up in the Peter Attia podcast was, and he's always on different podcasts, I don't remember which one it was, but he was talking about, it might have been Diary of a CEO, but he was talking about as we get older, and one of the most important 2 things that I took out of it was, he was like, injuries. You got to freaking make sure you don't get injured, because, for me, that's a big deal. Like when I was in England, I injured my chest and trying to bench too much. I was being
Yeah.
I'm a complete moron, and admittedly. And so my ego is like, all right, I could do this. I could bench 300 pounds. And
oh shit, that's a lot.
I got 275. So I was going towards 300 and I got 275. And as I got 275, I felt a strain in my chest. Bro, it's been 4 months and my
Still
chest
hurts a little bit.
Yeah. And it never was bad, but it was bad enough to where specific movements in the gym, I couldn't do. Like it hurt too much. And so then that started affecting my shoulder and everything. And so it really brought it home to me when he was like, the number one thing is you got to make sure that you don't get injured, because as you get older, those injuries keep you out. And as they keep you out, sometimes people don't come back, and
yeah, it's a delicate balance of, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like a delicate balance of like training and then mobility and like stretching and eating and sleeping. It's like all such a delicate. And if you start, like what I notice is like, for me, at 42 going on 43, I can go like a few weeks off the path and still be all right. But then there's like a moment where I start to feel it. And it's like, I know now I'm going into the fucking danger zone. Yeah. And I have to pull it back. Yeah. And if I don't pull it back, then like, like I get like my shoulders are super tight. So like if I'm training hard and I'm not foam rolling and I'm not doing all that kind of shit, like, I start to feel it like in the neck and the shoulders, and then I have to slow down. And it's a really delicate balance of like doing everything enough.
It's crazy because and what it shows is that the consistency, I always say it's consistency over intensity. And it's like
in everything in life,
you have to be consistent. Consistency is everything. I think I try and explain that to people. Like people are like, well, you're 50, almost 57. Like I was rolling with those guys at the gym and they were like 57. And, and it's like, but what's the secret? I'm like, I try and do it every day. I try and do everything every day. Even if I do crappy 5-minute yoga, I still did it. If I did 15-minute great yoga or half an hour, great. But it's, I don't think there's any way to escape that. You have to do mobility. You have to do all of it. And so what I found, when I hurt my knee, when I was in Barcelona, more ego. But when I hurt my knee, I wasn't properly warmed up. And guess what else? I was traveling. And so I think when you're HRV and your body's in that state where you're just run down, you're so much more prone to an injury, which goes to what Peter Attia was saying. It's like, no, man, you got to freaking make sure. And what he's really saying to me is what I hear is I got to be balanced as I can be and preventative as I can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I don't think people want to hear that, man, because it's
hard. It's a lot of work.
That's right.
It's it's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication. It's not a fucking Ozempic fucking needle. It's not.
That's everybody is always like, what's the secret pill? What's the secret shot? What's the secret this? What supplements are you taking, man? It's like, it's none of that. It's consistent, balanced consistency, and I'm reiterating that
part of your life.
Yeah, I reiterate that right now because I'm talking to myself, where you're like, you have to remind yourself, like, dude, you got to be consistent. You got to be, just don't be crazy about this shit. But one of the things that came up, which is really cool, what he talked about with injuries also is he's like, bone density is critical.
Yep.
And what he said, because he's like, you get an injury where you break a hip or you break a leg or something like that. He goes, many guys never recover. They never recover. That's it. They slide over the hill and they're done.
Have you ever got a DEXA scan?
No. What's that?
So I learned that from him, from his book. It's like it measures your body mass and like your whole, like it gives you your bone density, it gives you your fat to muscle ratios, it gives you the whole scan of like what your body makeup. It's like like when you get BMI, but it's like the next level of it. It's like the next level. It's like, and the bone density piece is super important. And I was fortunate to find out that my bone density is like great. The guy said that I have like the bones of like a fucking 18-year-old.
That's awesome.
Like that, I got thick bones. I take 'em.
Have you ever had a bone break?
Have I ever had a? Yeah, I guess the shoulder dislocation. I guess that counts, right?
Is that ligament or tendon, or that's not shoulder? That's not muscle. I mean, that's not bone.
I guess you're right. That is. Yeah, I've never had like I think maybe like a finger or a toe, but nothing significant. Nothing.
I've
like
never had a bone break.
Oh no, I'm lying to you. I broke my ankle. I got into a fight when I was in college, and I broke my ankle. The irony of that, like I got into a fight before I really knew how to fight.
That's when you fight because you don't really know how you don't really appreciate how stupid it is, right?
Yeah.
Been there,
100%.
done that, where you're like,
just
oh God,
hot young mess of a boy.
All testosterone. Piss and vinegar is what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what he was saying, what contributes to bone density, or what increases bone density, is deforming the bones. So we want to deform the bones, which means when you're lifting weights and you're pushing like with leg extensions or anything, lifting anything, it's putting pressure on the bones, and the bones are slightly deforming, and then to deal with that stress, the adaptation is to create more bone density. So resistance training for that, or I'm sure what he also said, what he was like, he mentioned, he's like, people who do jiu-jitsu have good bone density.
Interesting.
Because they're constantly deforming their bones. You're getting yanked on and pulled and pushing people away. And you know what I mean? So yeah, I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. So that was fascinating. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And so, anyways, yeah, that's kind of it with the health thing, where I was like, okay, bone density and, trying to get a grip on my HRV, because I really want to see how fast my heartbeat comes down. Because I know when I'm sparring, like last night, I don't know how it is. Even when we were at the gym, man, I do a round because now, we're rolling with kids. How old are some of the kids in there that I rolled with?
Some of those guys, like the youngest kid who's like that wrestling stud, he's 15. The one kid was 15. There was a 15, 18-year-old.
I didn't roll with the 15-year-old. Yeah.
No?
I don't think I rolled with him. No.
He doesn't look 15. He looks like he doesn't look 15 at all.
What belt
the
is
smaller
he?
guy, the smaller guy with the long hair is older. The bigger one is the one that's 15.
I didn't roll with him. I don't roll with 15-year-olds. Okay. Fuck them.
No. Well, you know what? He's I would have. The girl that was training with us, he's the one who kneed her in the head, and she had that big old fucking, that big old bump on her head. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, the other kids like Tony and, you roll with these kids. And so now I'm doing rounds with, as are you with these.
We did like 10 rounds. We did a lot of rounds that day.
I love that. That's how I love it. I like to just spar. I've been sparring too much, man. I came out of there, black eyes, all kind of shit. I spar too much. I sparred last night. So, I'm, you spar hard, and afterwards my heart. And I would say one of the things that I'm enjoying most about like jiu-jitsu right now is I love that feeling of when I'm laying back on the mat and my heart is like beating out of my chest. It's like, it feels so alive, where you're trying to get your breath and you're like, so I think that's where I want to see that measurement. How quickly, like after that, does my heartbeat come down? How quickly does it come down? So
Yeah.
it'll be a good test, man. It'll be cool to get a handle on that.
Absolutely.
So what else is new with you, man?
Nothing. Just trying to balance all these balls, man. Trying to split focus, but maintain focus on, the many different things. Making a lot of music lately, which is cool.
Dude, I loved how at your I got some video. I gotta post it of your man cave up there. It's like the greatest man cave ever.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You got a whole like music studio with a stage for live shows. Do you ever do live shows in there?
Yeah, we do. We do like events and like we've done like open jams where we'll invite a whole bunch of people down and people just start show up through the night and people get up and get down. Yeah, we do some stuff.
I did that. I played at a blues jam in Brooklyn.
I saw that. Very cool.
So cool. So fun. So friggin' fun. I love that.
Very
and then you got the gym. You got the private gym in back.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the sauna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that, bro.
Setup.
That's good. It's a good time, man.
It's a good setup.
Yeah. So anyways, dude, it's funny. I just saw this 2 videos back to back. You know how the algorithm is that's running our lives is, and it, do a 180 now where it was talking about how they had Bill Gates and Elon Musk talking about resources and scarcity. And both of them were saying, listen, man, the trajectory is very clear. We're nearing a point where scarcity is going to be a thing of the past because with AI and robotics, and it was interesting because both of them talked about how, money is it's a mechanism, it's a construct that allowed us to figure out how do we distribute resources.
Resources, yeah.
How do we distribute resources when they're scarce?
Yeah.
And what they were saying is that, if you think about it from that perspective, money will have no more use when there's no more scarcity. What's the point?
It's just, I think that like that is tangible and real. It's just the powers that be are not going to let that happen.
Well, when you can control other people, why would you give up that means of controlling other people and getting them to do what you want? I mean, it is a lever. When you have scarcity, it is a lever to get what you want out of other human beings, to say, you're going to do what I want because I'm controlling the scarcity.
Yeah, you're going to need, in order to put that over, you're going to need like reform on the level that we've never seen in human history. You're going to need reform, or it's going to be bloodshed, and I hope not, but
that's kind of what I think is. I think we're nearing a point where, we are on the verge of a singularity of, and a singularity being something once we cross that line, that Rubicon,
there's no going back.
We won't even recognize. And I think we're on the verge of, from an optimistic perspective where, it could be complete utopia, or the other fork in the road is like what you're saying is like, we're not giving up this scarcity model because it allows us to have control over the masses.
Yeah.
And I think we're there. I think we're very, very close. And what I find so fascinating is we're reaching a point, at least in America, where we're digging in deeper into the scarcity model. Right? I mean,
well, because the country's still run by fucking 70-year-old people. And like, that's all they know. To be honest with you, like, that's all they know. And it's like, as silly as that sounds,
that's the shame of it all.
And as simple as it sounds, is like, that's the only word, even though they have all the technology, they have all the money, they have all the power, they came to be in a world where that was the only reality. Yeah. And it's ingrained in them. And like,
it's religion in the deepest part of their psyche is like,
it's religion.
Yeah, this scarcity model is religion, and the only way that you justify your existence is
work, money.
to work.
Yep.
Yeah, and do what I tell you to do.
Produce.
I think this discussion has to start happening now because, and it's not like there haven't been people talking about it, like Andrew Yang. Remember him? He's running for president like 2016 or something like that. And his whole platform was, this whole model is over. He was a tech guy. And so he was like, this whole model is freaking over. And if we don't start shifting to UBI, which is universal basic income, we are absolutely in for a dystopia because we're going to eliminate jobs. And so it's, I think it's very clear. And so I was just listening to another podcast, which was great. And it was talking about China. China's in the news and all because of tariffs. And, one of the things that came up for me out of that was the reality is that we are the richest country in the history of the world. In the history of the world. We have so much wealth. It's mind-boggling. And so clearly our problem isn't we need to make more money with tariffs or whatever it is, however we're doing it. We already have the money. We already have the most money. How much more do we need? We're so wealthy. The problem is we're not allocating that wealth equally.
Yeah.
Right. We're in a game of monopoly where now, 95% of the board is controlled by 5% of the people. Whoever those 5% of people are, whatever it is, you can go look them up on the Forbes index, with Billionaire Club. So those are the people. We don't need to look at conspiracies and all that shit. Who are those people
it's right there in the open?
It's right there in the open. You don't need to go on YouTube and look at space lasers and all kind of shit for Illuminati conspiracies. It's right there. And so we have a serious resource allocation issue.
But do you think, and this is something that I think about often, is like, is it the billionaires or is it the bureaucracy? To me, sometimes it feels like it's because a lot of these billionaires, like especially like the Silicon Valley guys, I mean, these guys are new. They popped up recently. We're not talking about like the Rockefellers. We're not talking about the Vanderbilts. I feel as though it's more the bureaucracy than anything. It's like this system that's in place.
Okay, so the system that's in place that is not allocating the resources correctly. Is that right? What you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or that's preventing a lot of movement that could make things better. Like there's just so many.
What are the mechanisms for distributing wealth?
Well,
as GDP comes into the country, right? You have gross domestic product. That wealth comes into the country, right? How is it then supposed to be distributed?
Well,
I know the answer.
I don't know. What do you got for that?
Taxes. There's no other way to distribute. There's no other way. So if someone is, when we look at America in its greatness, right?
Yeah. When
the middle class was and wealth inequality was at its least in the 50s and 60s. You look at what was the tax structure, right?
So you're saying that the heart of the problem is the 1%'s ability to defer tax through all the loopholes and all that kind of shit.
Through the bureaucracy, just like you're saying.
Yeah.
So back in 45, 46, 47, the top tax rate on the highest earners was 91%. 91%. And the middle class it's just a pie.
It should just be a fucking flat rate. It should be 10, 15%. Everybody's got to pay that. And it would balance out, I think.
I mean, right now, you and I pay 30. Yeah, we pay. Yeah. But if you're a billionaire, you pay almost nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. because you take most of your earnings as stock, which is a capital, like capital gains, and then you never cash them in and you just borrow against it. It's a whole scheme.
Yep. It's a whole scheme. Yeah.
And you don't pay any taxes on that. That's a bureaucratic problem. So what stops politicians from enacting those policies? Because then
the billionaires paying them off.
That's right. So yes, it is. In the end, it's both. You're right. It's both. So the more you accumulate, the more you have money to say, oh, you know what? I have so much wealth that I'm going to spend $240 million to get a candidate elected.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
If I can accumulate 100, 200, 300, 400 billion dollars for me to spend $1 billion. And, ultimately it's both in its corruption of the system. And so, but this is important because this is foreshadowing what's going to happen when we have ultimate amount of resources, in the sense that we already have so much wealth coming into the country anyways in resources, and we're not distributing effectively. What makes us think that when it's unlimited resources that it's going to get distributed efficiently? It's not. Equally. Well,
that's where you're going to see. That's where the tipping point's going to occur. Either we're going to evolve as a society and move into a different model, or people are going to get fucked up. Motherfuckers are going to die. That's going to be one or the other, you know. And unfortunately, I hope it's not the we're going to die part. I hope not. But at that point, I'm going to live in the DR.
I mean, I hope it's not too. I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is that we're nearing that point. It's not going to stop. On this podcast they were talking about with the Chinese expert. He's an expert on China. Spent a lot of time there, and he was talking about dark factories, and they were talking about reshoring jobs and bringing jobs back. And he was like, that's a silly thing, because if you go to China now, you visit what are called dark factories. I never even heard of them.
Me neither.
And what a dark factory is you go to the factory now and the factory has no lights on at all day long, no lights. You know why?
Why?
Because there's no workers.
Wow.
They only turn the lights on like between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning for engineers to come in and check everything. Then they leave. There's no human workers. That is the future. The future is not bring jobs back and let people sit in a factory and put, do that's over.
No.
Those days are over.
Yeah.
Those days are over. Even if you brought back manufacturing to America and if you brought manufacturing back to America, it would be so expensive to buy the things anyways. Our inflation, we would be looking at 50, 100% more cost for everything that we consume. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
We're living through a real game that's being played out on a huge scale. And we're living right through it.
Right through it. And it's happening right before our eyes, where we're like, and I actually dig it, man. I think it's like one of the coolest moments in history.
Without a doubt. I mean, like, watershed, absolute, total, revolution. Like the Renaissance ain't got shit on what's happening.
On
right
what
now.
We're about to go through. What we're about to go through. Yeah. And
the hard part is that nobody knows what's really happening. The hard part is that, like, there's no, like, it's impossible to know what to believe. It's impossible because, like, we're also at the absolute highest level of the propaganda machine in human history. Like, the propaganda machine is at its absolute peak. Can't go any further than this. And you got this cross-generational. You got people that are in their 60s and 70s that like have this one view of things, and it's completely not the way things are anymore. And then you have, kids in their 20s and teenagers who are completely on a different operating system. It's fucking wild. There is no truth right now. There is just propaganda. Like the only truth there is individual truth and what is happening, in your immediate, orbit. That's the only thing that's true right now, I think.
Yeah, I do think that if you can become a lot more discriminating on like looking for an expert on something, right? Is this what you do? In other words, if I want to really understand what, like when I had my issue and there was question on the electrical circuitry of my heart, right?
Yeah.
I didn't go on YouTube. I take that back. I did go on YouTube and I did research it on YouTube. And you know what I learned? Nothing. It was all bullshit.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Miami and I went to an expert who specialized in the heart, and he worked with athletes. And he put me on different heart scans. And then he explained that, listen, most doctors who don't work with athletes are never going to understand what's wrong with your heart. What happened is you have an adaptation because in your electrical system to allow your heart to deal with the amount of strain that you put on it all the time. He said it's actually a good thing. And so, but you have to, this is what critical thinking skills is we learn to say, okay, no, this person is not an expert at this. Yeah, they're a doctor and they have a doctor. It's like with these longevity clinics. Dude, you go into a longevity clinic, they're going to sell you on everything they sell. That's what they're doing. Yeah. They're not there to tell you the truth. So you need to be able to say, okay, you're a doctor and you specialize in prescribing X, Y, or Z, but the reality is you're not a trustworthy source. So I need to make sure that I get to how do I just weed through. And it's not, unfortunately, the algorithms on YouTube end up leading us to believing in space lasers are coming down and being controlled by Jews who are starting fires in freaking Pacific Palisades, right? It's like, this is the dumbest shit I've and I've had people show me that, dude. We're like, no, you're from there. Well, this is what really happened. Look at this video. And there's lasers shooting down from the heavens. And I'm like,
well, we've been conditioned to propaganda for so long, for fucking thousands of years. We've been conditioned.
I know, but, and I agree with that. But the problem is that it's what we don't realize is that this is actually really cool, is that it's very hard. This is like Zen training, where the reality is you have to learn that you're using the mind to understand the mind. You cannot trust it. You have to learn to break out of those patterns. And when you do that, then slowly you break that conditioning. And it's very easy to think that because we can think, we actually have good critical thinking skills. We don't. No. And critical thinking is not an inborn thing. You have to learn it. Like you go to school and you learn to critically think.
And I think there's something in us, and we've talked about this a bunch, is there's something in us that craves information and narrative as a vehicle for belonging, not to attempt to solve a problem and continue moving on. And we talk about this all the time about like, what you believe in, what you listen to, a lot of the times has a lot to do with the identity that you're trying to present. Like I'm a Republican, so I listen to Fox News, or I'm a liberal and I listen and I only watch CNN. And like, none of it is about, I want to educate myself so I can be the most optimal version live the most optimal human experience. And I'm willing to hold strong opinions, but loosely held. to where like, if you show me a better way, I'm willing to reject what it is that I've had up to this point. Most people don't think that way. Most people don't operate that way. Most people are just like, I need to be a part of this club. This is what makes me feel good. So this is what I believe in. This is what I pay attention to, just because I want to feel like I belong. And I don't want to have to think any deeper than that. And until you solve that problem, it's not a lot you can do about any of this shit, because, and people, they're not even aware of it. They're not even aware. I mean, all you got to do is just start an argument with somebody who's like in their 60s or 70s on a political thing, who like, you start pushing in and you start to see that you are challenging everything that I've ever believed and held true in my life. But the reality is, guess what, motherfucker? If anything is being proven right now, is that like, yeah, maybe what you believed your whole life is not true. And you're going to have to respect that. You're going to have to accept that. But that is so scary, so foundationally terrifying to people. I think
yeah. No, I was going to say, I remember being in a class, you know, one of the things in that I got out of law school was that it wasn't, you're not really you learn the law, but what you're really learning, because the law always changes. So if I go to school 20 years ago and you get out, it's like, dude, 10 years later, all the laws have changed. You're fucked. So what they're really teaching you is how to think.
And how to win.
No, it's really thinking.
Yeah, sure.
And yes, you're right. Winning an argument through spotting as clearly as you can flaws in logic.
Yes.
Flaws in to understand the flaws in your logic, I have to turn the mirror and see the flaws in my logic. And that is, and dude, so listen to this. There was this class. For months we studied this, and it was about how a trap of the mind with logic is that during the Korean War, they were able to turn more soldiers against America than they ever did with all the torture and everything during World War II or World War I. And you know the torture they used to get them to do it? You know, you can imagine, dude, where they're freaking what happened during, you know, with Germany and World War II, and what they did to soldiers that were captured, POWs. Well, you know what they did during the Korean War?
What's that?
Is they gave him a piece of paper. And they said, okay, day one, I want you to just write down a few things that you wish were a little bit different in America. Okay. And then the next day, here, thank you for participating. We're just trying to understand your culture. Okay. We're going to give you, here's some food. You're hungry, take care of you. Write down a little more. We want to understand your culture. Write down a little bit more about what you don't like about your country. Right. And every day they would get them to expound upon this. What didn't you like about their country? After a year, they were turned against their country. Do you know why? Because of they call it cognitive dissonance. Once you get someone to believe one thing and start believing that, to think about it being different causes so much discomfort that our minds reject it. And so now they're up there saying, yes, my country was evil. It was this, and this. That's why it's so dangerous for people to watch the news. Because you're not getting news. You're being led down a path with people who are sitting around, you know, if it's right wing or left wing, sitting around a little panel, and they're all talking about, well, you know, I agree with that. And they're being reasonable, but they're really steering you down a place to where you're being radicalized. And that's what the North Koreans did. And that's what news shows do. Now,
and
now they
cognitive
do.
dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is not supported a lot, and it's one of the most important things. We become so uncomfortable with anything that disagrees with what we now believe, and we're slowly led down that. Or just the ability to stop and look at the options and say, I'm not sure what I think, and that's okay.
Yes.
I'm going to leave this for a second.
Being okay with uncertainty. Am I okay with uncertainty?
I'm aware that I don't know everything, and there's a lot that I don't know, and that's okay. Yeah, it's just, but I don't know. Like, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, is it a species level situation, or is it the result of conditioning?
I think it's both.
Yeah, probably.
I think from a species level, from an innate, from our inborn tendency to crave certainty and being uncomfortable with uncertainty, that's natural. We want an answer. We get very uncomfortable. We're like, we want stability. And then you have a society which, whatever the cultural conditioning is, we talk about it, how, you travel enough. Traveling is like taking acid, because you actually are like, wow, they think completely different from me. And I've never seen this perspective. That happened to me. It's happened to you.
And then you have to start to weigh, like, people talk about good and bad and right or wrong and moral and immoral. And you start to look at like certain ways that like people live in other places. And then you say, well, you can't really color it with that fucking red and black ink. You can't really say this is good and that's bad, because it's more complicated than that. How can you write off a whole society as like, this is wrong? You can't do that.
Well, if you look at, they put out a happiness index, right?
Yep.
For the happiest countries in the world.
Was like number one.
I don't know if it was number one, but it's up there.
I saw something that said, it was one of those things, but I saw something. I don't know.
No, I think it's up there. I think they're much happier people, probably because it's not freezing all the time.
And they said the Southeast, not Southeast, like Asia, the Asian countries were the least.
Of what? Happiness?
Yeah. The most unhappy people in the world were like East Asia.
Wow. I wonder what countries in East Asia that is.
Probably China, because, they fucking, I can't imagine that those people are happy.
I know that most of the top countries in the world are Scandinavian countries, we're Norway and, these other Sweden and Finland. They have less religion. They're more open about sex. There's very, very, very equal distribution of wealth in the country. They have no housing problems, and they have free healthcare. Yeah. They have a safety net to where you're like, if anything happens, are you always cut through and stressed out about it? So we have the wealthiest country in the world. We have the greatest housing crisis, and we have the worst healthcare.
It doesn't make sense, man. That's the bureaucracy shit, because it's like it doesn't.
Yeah, but the bureaucracy shit coupled with not allowing the bureaucracy to redistribute wealth so that everyone has healthcare.
Healthcare, housing, and education are problems that so feel like they can be solved without much trouble. Like, how is that not? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so then we get into the argument of where people say we need less government. Those countries have more government. Those particular,
yeah. Well, the only thing that I would like devil's advocate on that, I think that it's hard to, like, a country like those are small countries. They're really small, and all the people are the same kind of people. Whereas like you have this giant,
they're more
homogenous. Yes. We have this giant behemoth that we live in, 350 million people spread across this gigantic landmass of all different types of ethnicities. And it's a lot harder to organize that. But even that still said, healthcare, I mean, the whole thing with the healthcare marketplace and all that kind of shit, that's bullshit. That should be privatized. That should be taken to like where people can innovate and create better solutions, like they're doing. Like people are doing. Like I go to a doctor who's he's a cash guy, and he's non-insurance, but you can do like a plan, and you can pay X amount of dollars a month. I have a cell phone number, and like Why can't that be more ubiquitous? It totally, you know what I mean? And then that guy's job as a businessman is to get a lot of subscribers, a lot of people to pay the monthly fee. But meanwhile, I pay $2,000 and change a month for out of my pocket for healthcare, and you get shit service. It takes 8 months to get an appointment for a physical. It takes, you show up, it's like 2 hours in the waiting room. It's a absolute shit business model. But they're not allowing anybody to innovate on it because there's a chokehold.
Well, you can innovate on it, but you got to do it cash and outside of the insurance system. Because what the real problem is that we've privatized insurance, whereas in these other countries, there's no profit motive to deny claims. There's no, you know what I mean? Yeah. So when you are like, we're taking an entire business out of it, then that's in these countries where you have the highest happiness index, they have socialized medicine. There's no, there's no, and I having lived in a country where they have socialized medicine, I can speak to at least my own experience with it, and it was amazing. So, and my daughter lives in England, and hers is amazing.
It feels like we're like it's like you either got to be fully socialized or fully privatized.
Totally.
Like we're like in the middle. We're like in the middle. Whereas like there's this select group of private companies, you know what I mean, that are, like the insurance companies and the hospital systems, and like they're private, but like, are they private? They're not. They're, they're feeding the politicians. It's like you got to be either all private or all socialized, not what we are.
Mm-hmm. So then this is really wild. So then, because I think this idea is really coming up a lot, where it's like people think there's this notion that, libertarian and less government is the way to go, when the reality is we're trying to compete against China. They were talking about how Huawei is like the biggest country in China. Yeah. And so I told you about this, about how they, within 3 years, they built a research facility, because they're like Google, they're like a massive company. They built a research facility with the help of the Chinese government. And they built, I think it houses 35,000 engineers.
Wow.
100 cafes, a whole high-speed monorail around the whole campus. And they built it in 3 years. 3 years.
It's wild.
That's who you want to compete against. You want to bring manufacturing back here? We don't have one high-speed rail. Why? Because of our bureaucracy.
Yep.
So, bless you. So, so you're talking about trying to compete with that. It's like, how in the world can you compete with that? And this guy was talking about how in China, they're not looking backwards. Everything in their economy is electric vehicles, solar, clean, free energy, and everything being just networked, where you get in a car in a robo-taxi and the screen comes down and it's instantly hooked up to your phone or laptop, where there's no like, how does this work? Does it work together? Their whole society is becoming like 3.0 level. And we're talking about going back to sewing buttons on clothes in a factory. Where? Who the hell? What are we thinking about?
And nobody wants those jobs.
Nobody wants those jobs. Nobody. So it's cool. It's actually, I think it's something that everyone needs to start talking about. Is like, what do we really want our society to look like? Because we're on the cusp where this great transformation is possible, and it's going to happen no matter what.
Without a doubt. Yeah,
whether we want it to happen or not, there will be a great transformation. And it's we're either going to end up being a third world country like Mexico, where there's only the wealthy and then very poor and there's no middle class, or we're going to share the wealth and we'll be like Star Trek, where it's just utopia. Well, I don't.
I hope.
I think these conversations are critical to making that happen. It's fascinating because
Big time.
Because we could be at the point where people are just chilling at the house, playing music, having sex with their robots, and
getting $100,000 a year.
Get $100,000 a year. I don't know.
I mean, I'll sign for that. I'll fucking sign for that. You know? Totally.
The main thing is we just need to get the old people out of running the country. I agree with you 100% on that, man. Oh my God.
Yeah, they got to make some changes on that level, like the time limits and all that kind of shit. You can't have a guy who's able to be in there for fucking 30 years. It's like, all right, if you can't get it done in 30 years, man, then what the fuck?
And yeah, dude, and just no more old people. Get these old people, Schumer, all these people, get them out. Yep. Get out. Go home. Pelosi, McConnell, all of them. Get the fuck out and let young people start shaping the world that they want to live in. The world you grew up in a time where there weren't even televisions. It's so pathetic. Anyways, it's going to be cool, man. It's going to be cool to watch no matter what. You watching anything on television?
I finished up White Lotus. You got to get into that, man. Shit's amazing.
I finished season 3. It was amazing. I haven't watched 1 or 2. Yeah, I haven't watched 1 or 2 yet. But yeah, I finished season 3.
You can watch 1 or 2 because it's all an individual story. It does well. There is a carryover from a few of the characters.
I got that.
You can watch. Yeah, you can watch it and it'll still be just as good.
I can't wait, man. I'm really stoked. Yeah. So I'm really pumped on that. I just started, dude, the movie, I will throw out a recommendation. I just saw that movie, Mickey 17 with Robert Pattinson, and it was amazing. Okay. Amazing movie, man. Okay. So good. It was so good. Sci-fi movie. I think he did Snowpiercer and also Parasite. And so this guy's like one of the best directors around right now. And so it was really good. And I just started reading the novel too. So I was like, this movie's so good. I'm going to read the novel. So
cool.
I love it. Yeah, it's good. What you got planned for the weekend?
Nothing, man. It's one of my off weekends.
It means you're going to get in trouble.
Probably. Probably. Yep.
All right, homie. Next time, man. That was great. Late?
Yes, sir.